Hello, everyone, and welcome into the hospitality room for the final time in 2024. That's hard to
Here.
believe.
It is. We've put together a handful of podcasts this year. How many did we do this year? Probably 50
At
thereabouts.
least,
Yeah,
at least, and,
we didn't
and of
take many
course,
weeks off.
yeah, no, we never take a week off. And we have an email address, we have an X handle, so people can communicate with us. I did get some feedback. Everybody loved the last show, so
Beautiful.
happy New Year to all. Um, it just seems weird to say 2025.
It does, right? I mean, at one point we felt like 2025 was going to be like Star Wars.
Yeah.
When when you were growing up and I was growing up, if they remade the movie, I saw this on social media the other day and it made me feel old. If they remade the movie Grease and set it back like they did when they released it the first time, it'd be
Yeah.
set in 2003.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when 1999 came out by Prince, and that was like,
Right.
God, that's wild. That's like way
Yeah.
in the future, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh man, that's way back in the rearview mirror now.
And if you think about it, Orson Welles' 1984 is 40 years ago. Not when he wrote it, but when 1984 happened.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Uh, yeah. Yeah. We had our 40th reunion this year, so it was like, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just nuts. But the one thing that is constant in our lives is football.
Oh, yeah.
And that is what we love on this show. And let's get to our talking points. The Razorbacks were actually in a bowl game in Memphis. We both picked Texas Tech. We were both
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And my first impression of Liberty Bowl was one, who the hell is that?
Hmm.
And two, where the hell has he been all year?
Yeah. I get that we weren't there at practice every day. We weren't watching these guys, go through the motions and, put out production. But if you've got a receiver who can one catch and then two run 22 miles per hour, why isn't he on the field? You've got hands of stone Tyrone Broden playing all year long, and you've got this cat who can run that fast.
And
Come
catch the
on,
ball. He
and
could
catch the
catch the
ball.
ball.
Yeah, I mean Texas Tech with all the production that they had returning, that didn't opt out of the bowl game, was really surprising to see how much Arkansas just torched them in the
Mm-hmm.
first quarter and a half. From
Yeah.
that point, Arkansas does what Arkansas does. They don't really have anything planned after the first opening script, and they struggled at times. But my gosh, their offense looked explosive in that first quarter and a half, first 25 minutes or so of the game.
It was like going to the first basketball game of the year. It's like you had to get a
Yeah,
roster to know
yeah.
who these cats were. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just and that's I think one of the big frustrations of the Pittman era is you get to a bowl game and you're like, where the hell's that guy been all year?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to give Bobby Petrino a little credit. He's the one that
Mm-hmm.
schemed it up, and and got those guys in space. And Taylon Green made some really good throws. Obviously, he made the poor decision not to get rid of the football and the safety. But other than that, you can't really knock how they played. They fumbled it too much, but they've done that all year.
Yeah.
I mean, offensively, you're walking out of that game thinking we got a chance to put up some points next year. And obviously, they're going to get some new faces. I still don't think they have a running back. Braylon Russell proved to me exactly who Braylon Russell is. He's a guy that probably can't do it on a consistent basis in the SEC and against good opponents. But maybe he's a part of the puzzle, but he's not going to be the focal piece. That's for sure.
He gained more yardage going in and out of the portal than he did in the ball game.
For sure.
I
There was
mean,
one point he had like 9 or 11 carries for 8 yards.
yeah, I mean it was like first contact.
Yeah.
It was like was the Tennessee game just a total aberration?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was
It might have
just
been. I mean,
nuts.
I just, he hasn't done anything that impressed me, and obviously all the waffling he's done in and out of the portal, he has made no fans with Arkansas. I
No,
promise. I'm in several group texts, and there's a lot of people who think that he should be booed when he walks onto the field next year.
it wouldn't shock me if it happens. And he's still got what 2 days because you get 5 days after your
It's
bowl
true.
game.
Yeah, he may be
He
back
may
in the
still
portal.
go back in the portal. So
It's true.
I mean, it was nuts. But I'm still not convinced Taylor Green is the quarterback of the future. But he's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what you're stuck with. He still can't read a defense.
No, he can't. But then again, neither could Tyler Wilson. And I know a lot of Arkansas
Yeah,
fans are going to sit there and scream at me and like, "What are you talking about? He's one of the great quarterbacks of all time." Tyler Wilson was a one-read quarterback.
yeah.
You,
But do
you
you
look at
need?
the
Go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
mean, for Petrino's offense, I mean that's all you need to do, and especially now that Petrino can be in his ear, literally
Mm-hmm.
tell him to play and say, "Hey, X is one, Y is two," and
Mm-hmm.
so you don't even have to really know the playbook anymore at this point. So I mean, yeah, yes, would it be nice to have a quarterback who can read a defense? You know, obviously what Jaden Daniels has done and Drake May and the pans out to that next level. In college, you don't need that. I mean, you can get a 1-2 quarterback or a guy who reads, and obviously if it's not there, tuck it and run. And it worked pretty well for Taylor Green, obviously in the bowl game, and it worked for him at Boise. It worked for him at times, the exception of playing good teams in the SEC.
And that was going to be my question. Is that something that he can learn or learn better and be
Yeah.
better at over this summer for next season?
You can improve, but you're not going to be able to go from A to what we're talking about. These
Mm-hmm.
quarterbacks are drafted in the first round. You're not going to be able to
Okay.
learn it that fast. Honestly, reading defenses and processing things that quickly is a knack. You either have
Yeah.
it or you don't. You can improve on it. You can obviously start to pick up some things, some tendencies, but it's you can do it or you can't. And obviously Taylor Green at this point, he's played 3 years of college football. Probably is never going to get to that level.
Yeah. He is who he is at this point.
Correct.
But if he can just learn to pick up a blitz.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I mean, think about it. I mean, Blair. I mean, how many close games they lost this year? If they can just hold on to the football. I heard Clint Conk, my coach, former coach at UCA, he was on the
yeah.
radio when I was driving around today, and was talking about just all the hidden things that Arkansas did poorly this year. You know, averaged 10 penalties a game,
Mm-hmm.
turned the football over. You know, led the country in fumbles. You clean those things up. A 7-6 season all of a sudden turns into 9-4, and you're feeling a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot better about yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like that's the biggest takeaway, or one of the bigger takeaways. Besides, who are these guys? Is yeah, they're really not that. They weren't that far away from having a much better season. You take away the Oklahoma State game, which
Yeah.
they fumbled away. I mean, could have, and should have beat LSU.
Mm-hmm.
I
Missouri.
mean, yeah, Missouri. I mean, holy cow, you're talking
Mm-hmm.
10 wins
Those three
now.
games right there go give you a 10-3 season.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, that's Razorback football, unfortunately.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's who they are. It's what they've done for 25 years.
Yeah, it's just it's maddening, maddening.
Mm-hmm.
All right, bowl games. You know, everybody was like, "Oh, the playoffs going to kill the bowls." Has it killed the bowls? Because we've
Yes.
watched, but it has.
Yes. The only bowl game I have watched more than 5 plays of was the Liberty Bowl.
Okay.
So I turned on the Oklahoma game for the final drive against Navy, and that is the only bowl games I've watched, with the exception of the playoff. I watched the playoff games
You didn't watch
because
no Pop
unless you
Tart?
have some kind of shtick or gimmick like the Pop Tart thing, nobody's talking
Yes.
about you.
Yeah. Which I think the Pop Tart Bowl is perfect
Yeah.
because they've got ACC, Big 12. No one plays
Mm-hmm.
defense, but the marketing and they have fun with it. Now it's something they can only do once a year because then
Right.
it would get old and lose the
Mm-hmm.
stick. But the mascots are what make that bowl
Yeah.
happen.
Lean into it. I mean, you got to go. You
Yes.
can embrace the silly to make
Yes.
yourself marketable. You know, like
Yes.
with the Duke's Mayo Bowl, dumping mayonnaise on a coach. That it gets people talking about how disgusting mayonnaise is and all that.
Yes.
Like dumping their Cheez-Its on it. I mean, those are the only things that people are going to talk about because they're not going to talk about the games
No.
because we're seeing JV products out there. The only reason people are talking about the Miami Bowl game is because the quarterback didn't play in the second half after he broke the touchdown passing record, Cam
Yeah.
Ward. So like nobody's talking about the games; they're talking about the things that either happen around it, or the
Mm-hmm.
things or the players that didn't play, or coaches that didn't coach in it.
Yes. And forever it was. It's funny because the argument was always, well, there's too many bowl games.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take him seriously. And then something happens where Cam Ward sits out the second half, and suddenly everybody's up in arms. Oh,
Yeah.
his draft stock's going to fall. I mean, it was just either we take them seriously or we don't. There's no middle ground. I mean, it's just
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if I'm a coach going into a bowl game and I've got a senior quarterback who I know is out of eligibility and not coming back, I
yeah,
don't know if that I want him to play.
yeah,
I want those guys to opt out. Give me all of the freshmen and guys who have been on the bench all year who haven't played. Let me see what they've got. I've got an extra
exactly.
month of practice with him. I mean, one example, prime example, because I thought he played pretty well. Colby Branham, the offensive lineman, the freshman from Fort Smith Southside, who played for
Yeah.
Arkansas, started at guard, played pretty well. And guess
hmm
what? Arkansas now knows they have a starting guard going into next season. They don't have to ask any questions.
I guess the only downside of that is, okay, now you've got film to go into the portal
Well,
and
that's true. Yeah.
increase your NIL. But then again, everybody's
Most
going
of
in
the
the
time, if you
portal
haven't
anyway.
transferred by now, unless and granted, there's probably some players who said, "I'm going to wait around for my opportunity in the bowl game, so I've got some film out there. Maybe I can go make some money." Because I guarantee you, Branham entered the portal, he'd probably make a little money if
Oh
Arkansas
yeah,
didn't match it. But I think they would because obviously the investment that Arkansas has put in the offensive line in the offseason shows that a lot of the money that they've got is going to go to those guys up front.
yes, and needs to. And it would
Yeah,
also be a bad look to let an in-state kid who
also
shows
true.
promise
Yeah.
to leave and go to Missouri or Ole Miss.
Yeah,
So
because I guarantee if you to further your point, I know we need to move on. If Arkansas wanted to keep Isaiah Satania, he'd still be a Razorback.
yeah,
But the
oh
fact that
yeah,
he put the ball on the ground all the time, had the drops, fumbled and muffed every kick or punt that he tried to return, with the exception of the one returning it to BYU, he'd still be a hog. But he enters the portal probably because somebody says, "Hey, we'll give you X, Y, and Z," and Arkansas's like, "Go." Like we're tired of watching you drop the football.
yeah. Which is kind of what Pittman said. We had a
Yeah.
value on these guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying we can get this, and it's like, well, yeah, let them go. Just like in business. Hey, I've got an offer for this. Can you match it?
Yeah.
And if you're not worth it, then let them walk. So
Agreed.
we'll see. We'll see if they can bring everybody back next year. All right, to the NFL. Who's the MVP?
I think it's a two-player race.
Yeah.
It's Josh Allen at Buffalo, and the way Lamar Jackson has played in the last month, he is back
Ooh,
in the conversation. Um, the question is, if you take those players off of their teams, how good are they? Baltimore is probably still a playoff team, right?
yay. Yeah.
Maybe at least fringe. If you
Yeah.
take Josh Allen off of Buffalo, they're a 5-win team. Can you name one offensive player on their team other than him? Maybe
Shakir.
a tight end. Yeah.
But he's not a big play guy. I
Right.
just know he's the one
So
that catches the short stuff.
yeah, I think what Josh Allen has done this year is been by far as impressive I've seen a quarterback carry a team in a long time. He's
Yeah.
doing a lot with not very much, and their defense is not great either. They're doing enough to win games, but to me, Josh Allen wins it. They've got the 2 seed locked up already. So, like, what do they do in week 18 is the question. Baltimore needs it because they're obviously still kind of jockeying for for the division or with the Steelers and everybody else, Cincinnati. Um, but I don't know. Lamar is going to make it very interesting in the vote, to be quite honest.
Is, does it come down to just? I mean, it's no longer valuable. I mean, they
Yeah.
call it the MVP, but it's almost like who's got the best stats.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go with stats, then probably go with Lamar.
Yep.
But
He's having the best statistical season of his career, and he's
yeah,
already won 2 MVPs.
yeah.
That's
So then
crazy.
there's well, and then Romo made the argument. Okay, he's already won two. Allen's not won one, so you probably give it to him because I don't
Yeah.
know.
So that is, and this is where I have a real problem with the vote because voter fatigue is now real. Didn't
Yeah,
used to be. Nobody ever got tired of voting for Michael Jordan for MVP, but all of a sudden LeBron starts winning it every year. Like, oh, let's give it to somebody else.
yeah,
If you go strictly based on the statistics and the most valuable player on a team, LeBron should have 15 MVPs, but he doesn't because of voter fatigue.
true.
Tom Brady and Peyton Manning would have 10 MVPs themselves each, but they don't because of voter fatigue. So
Yeah,
like it's to me that's silly. Give it to the best player. And that's why LeBron should have 10 times more MVPs. And that's why I think Lamar Jackson should win it this year, but Josh Allen is going to because of voter fatigue.
Well, but then you almost, if you look at the numbers, look at what Burrow is doing on a horrible team.
Mm-hmm.
You could make a case for Joe Burrow being the MVP.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's having a great statistical season as well, but it's always the most valuable player on the best team. That's why those guys that I mentioned always win it.
True.
Travis Hunter was the outlier this year. Rarely does a team who's not in the playoff or at least in the national
Hmm.
championship hunt even have a chance to win the Heisman, let alone win it.
True. True. And no one's mentioning Mahomes, even though
Mm-hmm.
the Chiefs have only lost one game, and rightfully so.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's having a terrible year,
yeah.
honestly. I
Well,
mean,
they're
terrible in
doing,
his standards.
yeah, they're doing just enough to win. So,
Yeah.
all right. So speaking of the NFL, our thoughts, man. I mean, they want to add eventually another game to the season, but this past weekend was just dog,
Yeah, it was.
except for one game, and we still got another week to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really
Well,
need another game?
no, I mean we don't. But I mean, when you extend things, I mean the chance of things being wrapped up by the end of the year continue to grow. I mean, and we're seeing that now. Every AFC seed is already locked up, or a
Yeah.
playoff berth is pretty much locked up, with the exception of one. Everything in the NFC is already settled. You just don't know what the seeds are going to be. So it kind of it makes you ask the question: do we want to expand this and make not only the preseason irrelevant, but also week 17, 18, and potentially 19 irrelevant? Uh, to me, don't change what you got. I kind of wish they'd go back to 17. To be honest,
Hmm.
I thought that was a because we rarely would you ever see games that didn't mean anything across the board. Like you've
Oh
got an
yeah.
entire early window next week, this coming Sunday that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. You've got one game that means anything.
Yeah,
Minnesota, Detroit. But yeah, everything else. I mean, it's like, but they're going to add one because let's face it,
money.
the owners just see money,
Yeah,
which is
and
insane.
Saquon going over 2,000 is a cool deal.
That is
And
very cool.
only one of 9 players to ever do it. And now he's got a chance to break the record if they choose to play him. I think you've got to. I mean, with running backs, I know he's playing an extra game compared to Dickerson, and OJ only played 14 games and had 2,000 yards, but you don't get that opportunity
No.
ever. I mean, you get it once, and if you ever
Yeah.
if you squander that opportunity, you ask yourself in 15 or 20 years, if I'm Saquon
What if?
Barkley looking back, and if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, you're like, maybe I should have played in that last game.
And it's fitting because they're playing the Giants,
Yeah,
and they should suffer.
yeah,
I mean, we knew he was good, but we had no idea he
hmm
could be this good.
yeah. You take the best running back in football, and it's not close. Christian McCaffrey is not in the same league as Saquon
Oh,
Barkley. I don't care what anybody says. And you put him behind the best offensive line in football, even
whew.
without Kelsey. This is what happens. This is what Derrick Henry was for so many years with Tennessee, and obviously what we're seeing this year. I mean, nobody's talking about Derrick Henry. He's got 16 or 1,700 yards himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so
Yeah.
you see what happens when great running backs get behind really good offensive lines. Scary things can happen.
Well, and then looking ahead to the playoffs, and it comes down to a running game
Yeah,
in essence. So I don't know. I mean, so the Eagles are. It's kind of wild that they're going to be at the 2 seed, and the
yeah.
the Vikings and Lions are battling for the 1. Green Bay got all the hype, and yet they have yet to beat either of those two. And the crazy thing is, whoever loses the Vikings Lions game is what, the 5?
Yeah, that's
I
going on the
mean,
road.
oh,
You're going to have a 14-win team on the road.
yeah. I mean, that
No,
division is nuts.
yeah, I mean, what's silly though is whoever it is that's going to be Tampa Bay or Atlanta win their division at 9 games, and a 14-win team is going to roll in as your first round opponent.
And smoke them.
Yeah, more than like, but also like the way Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans looked on
Whew.
Sunday. Do you want to play them in the first round?
No, no, not at all. And I kind of wish we had a Tampa versus Cincinnati game this week.
Oh, no
Because,
kidding,
man,
right?
I mean, they put up the numbers. And then, as exciting as we have those teams, we've got just total dogs Bears,
Yeah.
Jets. I mean, down 40 to nothing.
I mean, the Patriots lost 40-7 on Saturday. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
but,
bad too. I'll cover up my emblem here.
well, no, it's, but
Yeah, we
they've
got
got
the
a
number one pick.
quarterback. But they've got a
Yeah,
quarterback. And as,
they,
and as we've seen, if you've got a quarterback and you
yeah,
bring them along the right way, there's hope. But then look at the Bears. They've thrown Williams out there. He's getting
yeah,
killed. I mean, he's going to end up like David Carr. He's going to be
yeah.
broken in
Yes.
2 years.
Mm-hmm. And C.J. Stroud is taking a big step back this year too
Yeah.
because of that. I mean, his
Yeah.
offensive line's bad, and he's running for his life. And obviously, the injuries they've had on at receiver. Uh, I thought the Texans were going to be a team that had a chance to make a run in the Super Bowl because of injuries and bad offensive line play. They're not even going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, well, you mentioned Saquon. I mean, offensive line play is key, especially when we get to the playoffs. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of teams that have got some serious decisions to make. So it will be curious. If you're the Bears, do you really give Pete Carroll a call?
No, no. You got to bring in a young offensive guru. You call Ben Johnson, you offer him the moon, and make him say no.
Which would be good, but then you've still got the whole dynamic of the team president and the GM don't get along.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a
They've got
lot
a
of.
clean house. I think Chicago's going to clean house. I
Yeah.
think the entire coaching staff's gone, and I think the general manager's likely out. You got to start over because you don't get the number one pick very often and get what everybody thought was a can't miss and a quarterback in Caleb Williams, which is not looking like that now. You can't you
Yeah.
can't you can't stumble through another season with a bad coaching hire.
No. Well, and you got to figure out your front office because I mean, the whole president, the GM reports to the president, and the president. It's just
Yeah.
the Bears are just going to bear. So it'll be interesting. As we mentioned, 2025. It's just crazy to say is hours away. So what big plans do you have at the Swofford Hacienda tonight?
Probably not much. I think last year we were in bed by 9:30. I think we may go out and watch the playoff game, which starts at what 6:30, I think,
Yeah.
and then be home by the end of it and go to bed.
You know,
I don't mess with the alcohol in the vehicles, and there's no Ubers here in Maumelle, so
oh,
um, I just try to make good life choices, and usually getting
yes.
home early is one of them.
That is, and we are always for good life choices here in the
Mhm.
hospitality. And maybe that's a business opportunity, a Uber franchise in Mom L.
It's
Yeah,
crazy to think. I mean, Little Rock's 15 minutes away. Not even
yeah.
that. But
Wow.
they don't
Yeah,
come across the river.
yeah. We'll somehow make it to midnight here on the Ponderosa and then pack it in. Yeah, that is weird that the game kicks off at 6:30 on New Year's Eve.
hmm
It's like why are you trying to get done early?
And that's what
Is
4:30 Mountain Time, or because the
yeah,
game's in Phoenix, right? In Tempe.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's Dick Clark's New Year's Eve with Ryan Seacrest and whatever. I mean it's I don't
Yeah.
know. It'll be interesting. Well, speaking of the playoff, let's get to our predictions. 4 games, 3 tomorrow, 1 tonight. I cannot wait. Seating aside some big numbers,
Yeah.
neutral sites, Penn State, Boise getting 11.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be able to rely on Genty as much as they want. I mean, they're a team that's going to be built on him running it 30 to 35 times a game, and Penn State's defensive front's going to be too good for that. They're going to have to win throwing the football. And until they do that against a Power 4 opponent, I don't know that I can pick Boise to win. I think they might be able to keep it close for a little while, but I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to take Penn State to win and cover.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna go with Boise. I heard some good interviews from Genty talking about appreciate where you're at. You know, obviously he had chances to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I just think back to the SMU game. SMU, their quarterback just imploded. It was the
Yep.
moment was too big. Otherwise, Penn State wasn't doing a whole lot at all
Mm-hmm.
against the ponies. So I think, what's more critical, the first 4 minutes or the first 8 minutes or the middle 8 minutes, the last four of the first half, the first four of the second half.
Yeah, I think for Boise, much like it was for SMU, the start of the game is so critical.
Okay.
They can't get knocked out early. SMU had a chance at a touchdown early. They dropped the pass. All of a sudden, a couple plays later, they throw the pick six. Game's over.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Neutral site is certainly going to help Boise, but they've got to find a way in the first 8 minutes of the game, possession for each, to come out equal and look equal. I mean, there's a difference between, you kick field goal, they go down and score a touchdown, but it looks pretty even. But if you go 3 and out and all of a sudden Penn State marches down the field, you're down 7-0 in a drop of a hat, that's when things get sideways.
Yeah. The longer they stay in it, too, they'll keep the crowd because everyone
Correct.
loves an underdog. That's not even close to right. It's Texas at Arizona State. The Sun Devils getting 12 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this has the potential to be the biggest blowout of them all. Even if it was Alabama, I think Texas would beat them too. But
Yeah.
Arizona State, to me, is just going to be overmatched at every position, every level.
Mm.
I just don't see them being able to hang with Texas. I mean, this is a team that obviously won the Big 12, so they've got something under their belt, but not a lot. They're going to try to give it to Scatabo 100 times, and it's not going to work against that Texas front.
I'll take the Sun Devils. They may not win, but I think they'll cover. I just don't think Texas can handle a physical team, and if Arizona State can play physical, I think Texas has some problems. The rematch: Ohio State and Oregon. Oregon this time, even though they won the first time, getting
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, I don't know how the number one team and an undefeated team and a team that's beat the other team is the underdog, but hey,
Yeah,
I'll take 3 points all day. Give me Oregon.
yeah. I mean, that just makes. Plus, Oregon has done this all year. They've just gotten better, and then
Yeah,
Ohio State is just. I don't know. Can you follow up a dominant performance like they did against Tennessee? What 10 days later? I mean,
yeah,
you kind of lose all that momentum, don't you?
hmm yeah. You have to avoid the letdown. There's no doubt about that. And for Penn State, I don't think the letdown's going to be as much because you didn't beat somebody of as much significance as the Tennessee. So to
Yeah.
me, Ohio State, how do they handle the opening? If Oregon goes down and scores early, maybe they start to question things. And obviously, there's not doesn't take much for Ohio State fans to question Ryan Day these days.
Yeah. Is there an advantage though for Ohio State having already played a game, whereas Oregon has not played since the Big
Yeah,
Ten
the
championship?
conference championship. Maybe a little, but also 10 days off, as you just mentioned. Oregon knew that they were going to play somebody pretty good that throws the football, could run the football, pretty balanced team. So Oregon having that month off or 3.5 weeks, whatever it's been, you lick the wounds a little bit. You've got an experienced quarterback. I think Oregon's in a good spot.
Okay. And then the final game: Notre Dame, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia -1.
Yeah, Carson Beck not playing probably move this line by double-digit points. I think
Mm-hmm.
if Carson Beck is healthy, Georgia's almost a two-touchdown favorite. To me, Notre Dame did nothing to give me any kind of confidence in them with their shellacking of Indiana. They did what they were supposed to, but also let them hang around. I mean, it was 20-0. It should have been 45-0.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, Georgia flexes the muscles. They win it despite who's playing quarterback. They're just going to ground and pound and run it all over Notre Dame.
I'll go with Notre Dame just because Georgia struggles catching the football. Notre Dame's pretty good defensively. One of those could turn into a pick six.
Okay, I
So,
like it.
all right. Let her wrap up the year. Final word of
Happy
24.
New Year.